please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, subdates 230224.8. Okay, so there are a lot more sporks that require genociding or simply sending to the Mechanicum to be reused as spork servitors. While we juggle that conundrum, we need to press on as the forks seem to have rallied near the buffet. Hello everyone, welcome to the exhibition of stupid people. Today we're going to start with Sam Smith, because Sam Smith still can't stop featuring in the news. They are becoming quite the star attraction. Sam Smith is doing reasonably well in the charts, just not as well in America. A decline was inevitable, to be honest. A gimmick only goes so far, and when you push the right buttons, you're invariably going to push the wrong ones more often because you're a dickhead. Sam Smith, after the performance at the Brit Awards and all the other stuff that's been going on, more recently started doing a bit of a promotional circuit on British television. And some of those performances on national television have garnered some rather interesting criticisms, whether that be of Sam Smith or of the hosts for making minor errors, mostly because it's an obvious one and who actually cares. So you have Sam Smith on BBC's The One Show, and yes, defund the BBC. Sam Smith claimed that they dreamed of becoming a fisher them, because Sam Smith was asked about having a fishing hobby, which then led to Sam Smith correcting the host for what appeared to be a form of misgendering, because they'd asked whether Sam would like to be a fisherman, or fisherman, which is what nearly everyone in the trade is called. It's just a turn of phrase. 3 letters, MAN, is not indicative all the time of being gendered, but apparently in this instance it has to be. That's interesting. I know a lot of people with man in their surname. They're also female. And just to read the quote, just so you have this. Ronan Keating, the host, also a singer, said, "You're a big fan of fishing." Sam replies, "I do love fishing, yes. Yeah, I'd love to be a fisher them." One of the hosts then asks, "What, like a fisherman?" Sam then said, "I'd be any type of fisher them. I think I would like to one day. I'd just like to end my days fishing, like sitting on a bank. I do it on the sea and I do it on the lakes. I've never done it alone, someone's almost taught." When someone on Twitter then replies, "What fresh linguistic hell is this?" I completely agree. But even with this pandering bollocks, it doesn't really matter, because even bad press is good press. The outlandish performance at the Brit Awards garnered over 100 Ofcom complaints, which is quite high. No doubt they're all right-wingers and dreaded scourge non-progressive types that don't respect the non-binary. Just gonna throw a few extra things in here. People seem divided over a recent joke made by Ricky Gervais, who mocked Sam Smith's Brit outfit, the balloon thing, by saying, "The worst thing about being famous is the lack of privacy. I can't even walk down the street without people looking and pointing." It's a very harmless joke, to be honest, as it's just Ricky Gervais, head on that picture. He also points out that David Bowie's already worn an outfit like this before, so it's hardly fresh or new. But as Sam Smith doesn't even have to be in the same room for others to get criticism. Recently, Sir Bob Geldof spoke about working with Sam Smith. Why were there complaints, do you ask? Because Bob Geldof said he, which is haram. What a terrible thing to happen. A Freudian slip, I can't imagine why. I'm less interested in the fact there was a minor misgendering issue here, more interested in the fact that Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield, who everyone thought he wasn't gay for his entire career but is in fact gay because everyone knew it the whole time, still have jobs. And to anyone that got really sensitive to the misgendering issue, there was no intended malice behind it. There really wasn't. Perhaps don't be so sensitive over something that is, quite frankly, trivial. If we could just remove gender from the discussion altogether, that'd be great. Just abide my rules of no lives matter. You can be as offensive to each other as you want. It doesn't matter. I will deal with you when I get elected. Alright. So next we go to a lady called Anzelika Moskvitina. I probably mispronounced your name. I'm English, and using different languages are hardly our skills. We tried to conquer the world so you'd all speak like us, basically, and to take all the tea. Anzelika was on a flight to Moscow, and decided she needed a cigarette. But that wasn't the only thing she needed to do. You see, she was a bit cross, a bit angry, a bit uncouth. So she locked herself in the toilet and lit a cigarette. Now, it was believed she was in a, and I'm going to quote this, inadequate state along with grossly violating the rules of conduct on board the aircraft, which has led to some to demand new laws covering air rage to include a blacklist of unruly passengers. That would include this lady we're discussing now. What happened next was she decided she wanted to go to the cockpit. As the plane was going through turbulence, her entire gesture of going to get a cigarette was the wrong move. Everyone needed to be seated for their own safety. She decided then to use her ultimate weapon. At 49 years old, these weapons are still sacred to all. She got her tits out for the lads, shouted at fellow passengers, and declared that they were doomed. I thought they were going to end up on an island, but the Russian alternative to the show lost. I'm pretty sure it'd just be called Siberia. There is a video of this, but because the Daily Mail have it, if I play it, I'll get copyright struck. So instead I'm going to read some quotes to you because I don't speak Russian. Lady, take a seat and get dressed. She was ordered this by the crew, along with them saying, where are your clothes? She was then asked, do you understand you're violating the behaviour on the plane? There are children here, respect them at least. With her replying, I respect children. What's more, I love children. I understand I'll go to the mental hospital or prison, but I want to go to the cockpit. She was told that her demand was senseless. She then bit one of the flight attendants. She was urged to calm down, but repeated to the crew, leave me alone and let me go. She even wanted to die for that matter. Eventually, with a pair of plastic cuffs, she was pinned down, redressed, and a doctor monitored her as the plane landed at some airport in Moscow. Personally, I think they should have let her go to the captain. Maybe they should let her take over the flight as well for a laugh. You only live once, right? May as well go out with your baps out, am I right? By the way, just the thing, there were children there and there were tits out. Do you really think they were looking at those going, ew, what are those lumps on her chest? And not milk? Even at the age of 49, kids will still wonder. Now, as far as the assault goes, of course, she should be detained and charged for that. Straight to Black Dolphin, life without parole, of course. Might be an idea, just for the sake of it, to give the flight attendant a tetanus shot. Possibly rabies as well. We are talking Russia after all. Now I'm going to throw an honourable mention in here, but this one could well feature within the halls of injustice, but the reason why is because the person who did the stupid is 15 years old. The stupid, though, cost a man called Ian Kerwin his life. What had happened was, at a supermarket in Redditch on the 8th of March, Ian Kerwin went into the toilets, the customer toilets, and told off a group of boys because they were being little tosspots. They responded, one of them did anyway, by putting a knife in Ian Kerwin's heart. That 15-year-old has been detained for 14 years over simply being told off. During the whole event, when it went to Birmingham Crown Court, it was found the boy was only in town to rob, steal drugs, and was part of a masked gang that had terrorized the public. The other boys involved were cleared of the unalive charge, but found guilty of violent disorder, aged 14, 15, and 16, given youth rehabilitation orders. The oldest, though, admitted having the 12-inch kitchen knife that was used in this attack. All because a man told you off, you, a 15-year-old, are going to spend at least 14 years in prison. Make this make sense, you colossal thunderfeck. So to move on from that, the BBC received 199 complaints after Evan Davis allowed a guest on Radio 4's PM show to claim that JK Rowling was transphobic without being challenged. On the show, Stacey Henley, a transgender woman and editor-in-chief of The Gamer, appeared to discuss the new video game Hogwarts Legacy. The Harry Potter author did not have any involvement in the concept or writing, but does receive royalties from its sales. Cha-ching! During the conversation, Stacey Henley spoke about JK Rowling's nasty views and accused her of pushing transphobia and a campaign against trans people. The complaint is that no one challenged Stacey Henley on this. The BBC, and they get a lot of crap for not doing this, must remain impartial. Its own guidelines state it must. They in turn had to apologise because it presented an unfair characterization of JK Rowling's views, saying in a statement, "We do accept that there wasn't sufficient challenge to the claims that were made, and we fell short here." The thing is, that doesn't change that you didn't challenge it on air. Realistically, you need to have it done on air, the apology as well. Why? Because this apology goes under the radar. No one hears about it. Why? Because why would they? Why would they hear about this? All they hear is everyone dunking on JK Rowling for having a stance, and believing that she in turn wants to take away other people's rights and freedoms. That's not what she wants to do. She, as a feminist, wants to make sure that women are treated as women, and the question of what they are isn't up for debate with her. That might seem a bit controversial, but it is not intended as such. I am merely stating what she says. Again, no lives matter to me, so I really don't care. But it does to a lot of people. The BBC continue to say this is a difficult and contentious area which we do try very hard to cover fairly and well on the BBC. However, we should have challenged Stacey Henley more directly on her claims and apologised that we did not. The thing is, acknowledging this crap in tweets is not where you should be, which is what the host did, acknowledging it on Twitter with some meh bollocks. Again, the only reason you didn't challenge Stacey Henley is because you believed Stacey Henley being transgender was an authority on all things trans. You're cowards. So some of you may have noticed Roald Dahl was trending on Twitter. Roald Dahl is one of the greatest children's book authors of all time. Sadly though, many have noticed those books don't really keep up with society. Certain language doesn't really float, character depictions. Yeah, it's not current year worthy, of course, it must be cancelled, which is pretty much what's going on. For example here, The Telegraph, Words Matter, begins the discreet notice, which sits at the bottom of the copyright page of Puffin's latest editions of Roald Dahl's books. The wonderful words of Roald Dahl can transport you to different worlds and introduce you to the most marvellous characters. This book was written many years ago, and so we regularly review the language to ensure that it can continue to be enjoyed by all today. Put simply, these may not be the words Dahl wrote. The publishers have given themselves license to edit the writer as they see fit, chopping, altering and adding where necessary to bring his books in line with contemporary sensibilities. By comparing the latest editions with earlier versions, The Telegraph discovered hundreds of changes to Roald Dahl's stories. Language related to weight, mental health, violence, gender and race have been cut and rewritten. Simple examples. The Cloudmen in James and the Giant Peach are now cloud people. The small foxes in Fantastic Mr. Fox are now female. In Matilda, a mention of Rudyard Kipling had been cut and Jane Austen added. Over the years, Roald Dahl took a fair amount of flack for the Oompa Loompas, in turn being criticised for anti-Semitism, misogyny and racism, and of course mocking dwarves. In The Witches, and I remember this, the movie, the books, yeah, creepy stuff. They changed chambermaid to cleaner, great flock of ladies becomes great group of ladies, you must be mad woman becomes you must be out of your mind, and the old hag becomes the old crow. These changes to the story show how you are trying to rewrite an already good piece of work. People aren't learning bad lessons from these stories. They're enjoying the stories for what they are, and you are determining what is and is not a violent form of language, or oppressive, or derogatory. If you rewrite an author's works, the author's work does not exist anymore, because you've taken it and gone, I'm gonna, rewrite it for you, to keep up with current year feelings and sensibilities and sensitivities. Someone on Twitter actually showed the 2001 authorized Puffin edition versus the 2022 edition. You can see from The Witches 2 separate cuts, and Matilda. These changes are absolutely pathetic. My stance on rewriting things like Roald Dahl is going to be very simple. How about you don't? The sensitivity experts that did this, you clowns should just write your own books. You're using Roald Dahl's name to keep selling them. Roald Dahl's literature should be left as it is. Don't rewrite history because you're ashamed of it.